Mentzer also said, that people, what they are elevating the fitness routine into a social ritual, kind of along those lines of like spending all your time in the gym, right? And as you were saying, because I often do the same thing when I do a lot of consulting and I tell people they should take at least 10 days off, when they first meet me and they all freak out. Oh my God, how am I going to take 10 days off? And I was like, go read a book, walk the dog, play frisbee, do something. But they all freak out. And then usually about days in, they're like excited, like, oh my God, I feel so much better already.
We are about to launch.
Truth, not trends.
What's up, everybody? Truth and a little not to trends.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Oh my God, it is 2024.
It's January, at least, when you're hearing this.
Holy crap, I can't believe it.
2024.
You know what that means?
New Year's resolutions.
Oh, I don't ever do those. Yeah, fuck those resolutions.
Make some money, make some connections, make some love,
make some whoopee.
All right, it's getting weird. We better introduce ourselves. My name's Jesse Schmidt, and I've been a strength coach for 2,447 days.
And my name is Liam Bauer, and if it's 2024, that means I have been a strength coach for 36 years.
Holy cannoli.
Counting.
Wow. And this is the podcast where we help you maximize your strength as safely
and efficiently
as possible. Today, we are bringing you an interview with none other than Lisa Balash,
aka Kettlebell Bombshell.
Oh, yeah. And Lisa, in the second half of 2023, has undergone a kind of an epiphany and a personal, she's been on a personal journey from kind of doing this high volume. She's an IFBB pro, right? She got her pro card. And so she was doing this kind of high volume training regimen for, it sounds like a decade or so more. And doing kettlebell flows and Pilates and all this stuff, and then she stumbled upon Mike Mentzer through the wonders of the internet, and it changed things up for her.
Indeed, yeah. And so I had been noticing her out there in the ether of the interwebs, and thought she might be fun to chat with. She was having her own little epiphanies and journey.
You were right. She was fun to chat with.
So I invited her on the show, and we were lucky enough to have her join us. And we went all over the place talking about her personal journey from
that's right, high volume, low volume,
kettlebell,
injuries,
Pilates,
rest days,
clothing, entrepreneur,
nutrition.
Yeah,
we covered a lot of ground. And we know you guys are going to love the interview. But before we get to that, we want to make sure you check out all of the great stuff we have for you at tntstrength.com, including 5 nutritional supplements. They are
the incredible whey protein.
1,
the amazing fish oil.
2,
creatine monohydrate.
3,
of course, the probiotic.
4,
and we wouldn't be complete without a little superstructure, aka K2D3.
5. How many licks did it take to get to the center of a TNT supplement?
5 super supplements.
So you guys know, if you listen to the podcast, at TNT, we advocate a high protein whole food diet. But if you need a little boost, these supplements are a great way to go. Free shipping in the continental United States. TNTstrength.com. Check them out. And with that said, we hope you love this interview with Lisa Balash,
the Kettlebell Bombshell.
Boom, baby.
Awesome. Well, we're really glad you could join us, and excited to have you. Appreciate you taking some time.
Very cool. Thank you.
What we usually always do, as I mentioned, is we want to start out with you giving us a little introduction to our audience. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, and then we're going to wander down your journey.
All right. Do you want me to say my name first, or just say hi?
Tell us who you are. Who are you?
Hi, I'm Lisa Balash, and I am pretty much a fitness enthusiast, pro competitor, I love to learn new things. I created a company called Kettlebell Bombshell when I was really immersed in kettlebells, training, other people and learning it myself, learning the sport of competing in kettlebells, which was really amazing. I thought I was going to be like in love with that for life too, but here I am doing bodybuilding again. And I started off as a figure competitor back in 2001 in Las Vegas when they had the very first ever figure show. I did the first one and I learned, I had a lot to learn. After you start that journey, you just want to keep going. So I was really into bodybuilding in the beginning. And then I switched over to kettlebells when I found them because I wanted to take muscle mass off. I had too much muscle back then in figure for what compared to what they do now. So I just kind of, went that way. And then I didn't know they had a sport that you can compete in. So when I found out about that, I met like everything kind of like lined up so naturally too. I met my coach who's still like he would still be my coach if I were doing this sport, but he's really more like a best friend and he's an amazing lifter himself. And yeah, so I met him and he taught me everything there is to know about it and, from his perspective and how to be good at it. And I just didn't have the mental, it's such a mental sport because it's mostly endurance. And I just really, my love is muscle and having, and so like when I started it, I thought it was really cool, but I realized over time, like, this is just too much endurance for me, like mentally. I didn't have the mindset to push through to do 10 minutes at a time without resting and going fast. It's like just so much cardio. It's crazy, but it was very fun. And it was something I really did enjoy while I was doing it. And then I went back into figure and I started competing in 2018. And I thought, I think I really missed this and I want to do it again. So relearning figure was you had to have a lot more size. And that's kind of how I came into Mike Mentzer's heavy duty training because I needed a lot more size and what I was doing wasn't working. So here we are.
Yeah, awesome. And so, how did you very first find the Mike Mentzer? Like, where did you find Mike Mentzer information, or who pointed you in that direction, or did you just happen?
This is really kind of funny. I had no idea. I did hear his name because I trained with a guy years ago who was really like into bodybuilding in the 80s. So he was older than me. And he had mentioned him once. He said, "Oh, Mike Mentzer and so." And I thought, I don't know who these people are. Like, whatever. I wasn't into bodybuilding back then because I was in high school and I wasn't into male bodybuilders, obviously. So even when Arnold Schwarzenegger was like a thing, my cousin was obsessed with him, but I just knew he was in the movie The Terminator. I didn't know anything about him. So I didn't know anything. Just recently, back in July or June, I want to say June, I was scrolling on Instagram and this account came up called Bulking Not Sulking. And it was all about Mike Mentzer. And I watched a couple of the videos and I was listening to him and I thought, that's kind of interesting. And more videos popped up because like once you follow somebody, you start getting their stuff in your feed and you're like, okay, now I'm like watching all these videos. So then I realized I could go on YouTube and watch a little bit more. And I just thought, this sounds so cool. I wonder if anybody does it. I wonder if it works. So I started kind of communicating with people in the comments, asking them like, is anybody doing this or whatever? And they were like, well, yeah, all of us are into this, training method. So I went on YouTube and I found the ideal workout. And I thought that actually sounded more like me, but I tried the heavy duty first. And what was really cool about it was where he was saying, you can be natural. You don't have to, go to the gym every day. But I like going to the gym. So that was a little bit of a disconnect for me. But he was saying in order to grow the muscle mass, you have to take the time off. So I was like, what am I going to do for 2 weeks? Because in the beginning, when he said take 2 to 3 weeks off, I was like, no way could I do 3. 2, I'm going to force. And even after the first week, when I decided, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to commit to this, I really didn't want to take a week off. And I was like sitting around. Then I started eating bad food. I don't know what it is in like the mindset of people were like, well, if I'm not going to the gym, I'm just going to eat some Oreos, because they were sitting there. My roommate eats them. So I was just like, well, what am I doing this for? This is like terrible. So I still was trying to eat like, getting my protein and all that stuff, because we know the training is part of it, but the diet, you're not going to get anywhere if you don't get the right amount of food. So during that 2 weeks, I was just like thinking to myself, what am I doing? What am I doing? Am I going to do this? Oh my God. So the first day I go to the gym to do it, I'm like, it takes a while because you know how this goes. You don't know what your weights are yet. You don't know what's going to be your max. You don't know what's going to be what it's going to feel like. Even if you think in your head, you know what it is. You don't know until you try. So when you're going to failure, 6 to 10, okay, this sounds about right. I warmed up very little. I didn't really know enough yet. I did my reps way too fast. And I had some people, like I said in those comments, a couple of those people followed me, and then I posted some video, and they were they were giving me advice. They were like, well, you're moving too fast. You're not supposed to go like normal. You're supposed to go slow on the negative and focus. So I was learning a lot from the people on that page. So that's when I kind of decided, like, I'm going to commit to this. And I know, and at first I thought, well, maybe like a month, but it's going to take way more than a month. It's like a lot of people, and I've seen people on YouTube doing that. Like, I'm going to try Mike Mentzer for a month. Well, you're not going to see anything in a month because, I mean, you could, but it's like you're going to be learning. I think a learning curve happens in that month where you're like, oh, I thought this would be failure, but this is failure. Or I'm scared by myself, so I'm going to go a little bit lighter, or I'm going to quit too soon because no one's here to spot me. So I probably could have done two more. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like that whole thing about it was scary to me, but I wanted to gain more muscle mass. So sorry if I wandered off there, but I found it on their page, and then that information kept me interested in the program because I was watching more videos and then learning from the other people on the page, which I thought was really kind of cool.
And which page is that? Is it still the sulking, not bulking, or other?
Yeah, bulking, not sulking.
Bulking, not sulking. So, have you explored any other places with Mentzer information? I know there's other ones out there, like on YouTube.
Yeah, you know how they all pop up. Like once you're looking at one thing, all of a sudden and then people started sending me things like, I made a couple friends in the comments, and a lot of the guys were like, not that many women do this. It's interesting that you're like, and I've had a lot of guys contact me and ask me, like, I noticed you do the Mike Mentzer thing, and, I don't know any women that do it. What do you think? And honestly, I was like, I think it's the greatest thing ever. And I don't think I could go back to training the other way, even though sometimes in your mind, you might think like, sometimes I feel like I'm getting lazy because I take so many days off, and it's like, well, what happens if I like don't want to go to the gym? Oh, I'll just take one more day. But I don't think it really, at first I was scared of that. But then after you get really excited about it because it's almost like every time you train, you have a PR, so it's like, I'm going to go heavier this time and see if I can do one more rep, or I'm going heavier. So I might only do 4 to 6 instead of 6 to 10. I don't know. And then sometimes I'll do the rest pause where it's too heavy for me. So I have to stop, and then I'll just rest like 5 seconds and do one more. So I've experienced, different things happening with the training, but I've learned from other pages. To me, here's honestly what I feel happens. I feel like even though it's like you're working out your chest and back, and then you take your days off and you do legs, and then you do arms and shoulders, and it feels like, well, there's like so much time in between. Are you hitting every body part once a week? Well, I think you completely are, because more than once a week, from what I've experienced, when you're going so heavy, especially like, say, for example, on back and chest day, you're already doing your chest, your front delts, your triceps, right? Then you go to back, you do the bicep on that pull down, you're deadlifting, you got your legs for sure on the deadlift and your back and everything in the posterior chain. So then you take that I do 3 days off because I do the ideal. So then you go to legs. Well, your legs have already been worked on back day, but you've taken 3 days off. Then you're holding the weight on your back. So if you're doing standing calf raises with weight on your shoulders, even though it's like secondary, it's still heavy. So your body is doing something with that, I feel. And then I'll do the sumo squats on the Smith machine, or like another squat machine where there's weight on your body, So then you get your 2 more days off, or 3 days off. And then I feel like when I do shoulders and arms, you're still getting that same stimulus with the chest because you're doing dips. So you're getting chest and shoulders and tries. And then when you're doing your shoulders, like generally, and then when you're training for even the standing biceps with the barbell, you're using your back muscles like crazy. I am, because it's heavy. So you're bracing your core. So I feel like your whole body is just getting just the shit beat out of it all the time, every time you train.
I think, Lisa, it's worth dwelling on this topic for just a minute, because this is the wisdom of, of high intensity training, and Mike Mentzer is not just looking at, well, what are the muscles that we're targeting, but in the part of the kinetic chain we're working, what is the link that is breaking down and really getting worked the hardest. And you just brought up some good examples, like a barbell squat, right? A barbell back squat. In our mind, we think, okay, well, we're working the quads and the glutes, right? Those are the prime movers, right? But in reality, what is the link in the chain that's breaking down? It's the lower back, 9 times out of 10, right? Those spinal erectors are really getting taxed. And as you've pointed out here, and also on your, on your social media, exercises like a squat are a full body exercise. So that's a really important epiphany to come to. And I applaud you, because you've obviously been thinking critically about all this stuff, and it's benefiting you and the results you're seeing. And then the secondary thing is that we really have to not just focus on global or on local fatigue, but also on global fatigue, right? And that's where the rest comes in, because let's say you are still training, 6 days a week, but you're splitting, push pull legs. That still is going to be a lot for some people if you're training to failure, as Mentzer, recommends. And so, this sort of lower volume approach that you're talking about and having success with, and really that encompasses our entire business. We see people, I'll put it this way: we don't see very many people fail. We see almost everyone have great success, and not just sort of temporary success, but long-term success, both adhering to the workouts and in the results that they're seeing.
That's awesome. Yeah, and what's really interesting? I'll give a comparison. So strangely for me, every part of my fitness journey has kind of like came to me, which is interesting, because even when I did kettlebells, I had a Pilates studio where I taught Pilates equipment and kettlebells. And do you know, this is so funny, there is an exercise in kettlebell sport that we do, clean and jerk, or you could just do jerks. So with the kettlebells, they're like on your hips, and you bump them with your legs, you bump them overhead, and you get underneath them. And the stance in the rack position where you're holding them in front, the audience can't see me, but I'll show you guys. You're like in this like position where your shoulders are kind of curled forward. So in Pilates, we do this move, the same exact thing. They call it a C curve. So when you're on the equipment, you're in that position. So I started thinking, and I started connecting the dots when I was doing jerks. I thought, oh my gosh, this is like being in C curve when I teach Pilates. So when I started doing the Pilates after doing jerks, I noticed I was like doing that more, incorporating it more. And I thought, oh, that's how this is supposed to feel. Like all this time I've been doing it wrong. So it took me learning kettlebell jerks to put my body in the right position. And even though I was taught how to do it right, you don't hold the position because it's awkward. It's like weird. And it forces you to engage in your abdominals and your lats. And that's why like my lats, I think, were so easily developed, because I did so much in that position during kettlebell sport and Pilates. So I had a really good mind-body connection. And the other comparison to Mike Mentzer's method with kettlebells is that particular move, clean and jerk, is an entire body workout, right? So head to toe, every single muscle. And even though it's more cardio because you're moving quickly and you're doing it, and you do pretty much go to failure because you're supposed to do as many as you can do in 10 minutes. So even though that's like endurance and aerobic, you're still going to failure, because sometimes you can't do one more, you put them down. The next day, you're so wiped out, you're so tired, you're sore, you're freaking hungry as ever. And that's the exact way I feel when I do heavy duty. So I think the taxing of the nervous system is the same. It's like you've gone to that point where there's nothing left, there's no more you can do, you're done, if you do it right. So, so I feel like there was a connection there for me as well. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. This is how crappy I feel when I did kettlebells. And now I feel the same soreness and the same hunger, all that.
People outside of the kettlebell sport, because, many people play around with them, but they're not, true like competitors, or like, because the art of kettlebell, or the sport of it, has, just like any sport, has very, very specific movement patterns that you might not ever do in any other type of lifting. And most people that do kettlebells I see in the gym who are not real kettlebell people, they're like the swing, which the swing is so simple, but 99% of people do it poorly. unless they've been actually trained, and nobody has any idea what a real kettlebell, movements feel like, or what it's like to, like, as you described, have to stay in that rack position and then just grind them out, right? For long periods of time, unless you're actually participating in that sport. They just don't have any idea.
Yeah, and it's a lot of momentum because that's the key to being able to do the most reps. And the other thing too that people do wrong with kettlebells that I like want to, they hold them wrong. And there's a very specific way that you hold them so that you don't injure any part of your body, but it also allows your forearm to relax. So you have to hold the weights on the bones. So it's actually it's very taxing on your skeletal system, because most people are like, hold them right there in the middle of their hand like they would a dumbbell. They want to pick them up like a dumbbell and do moves. And so you would see these people, fitness, influencers or whatever, online using kettlebells doing the same things you do with dumbbells, but it's actually worse for your body because the joints are affected in a negative way if you body build with kettlebells because you're holding the weights below the joints. So it's straining everything if you're going to do one arm rows. Why would you not do them with dumbbells? Because that way you're keeping the weights inside. They're not hanging below the joints, pulling on everything, and it's not straining your forearms for no reason, like to do one arm rows. Now, if it's the only thing you have, well, of course, then do some one arm rows with your kettlebells. But really, it's not a good idea to use them in weightlifting. That's why the tools are made for each thing. They have a purpose. So, like in Mike's whole thing, you're going to do barbells and machines and dumbbells if you don't have the proper machines. So like for me, I don't have I wish I did. I could go to a separate gym, but I'll be joining 5 gyms to do it. But the side raises on that shoulder machine, I've never liked that machine. Every time I've ever used it, I've never felt the isolation in my shoulders. And maybe I had it set wrong or whatever, but I just never enjoyed that exercise on there. But I saw he does it and I thought, well, I should try it because you can go so slow and then you're holding it at the top statically and then you're focusing on the negative, which is where you get most of your gains, he says. But I started using the cables instead, and that seems to work the same way. I can control it up and down. So I think that's way better than the dumbbells. I don't like to do the dumbbells because for me, it's like making me move too fast. It's too heavy,
Yeah.
And
You're bringing up some great points here. We like to consider ourselves tool agnostic. That's kind of what we call it because
I like that.
kind of just like Mentzer, right? It doesn't matter, a muscle doesn't understand where the resistance is coming from, whether it's a kettlebell or a dumbbell or a machine or a barbell. It just understands that it's being put under stress. So for us, whether it's we're training ourselves or training a client, it's about finding the right tool for the right person at the right time. And so me personally, like, I don't know, if I were doing a lateral raise, my favorite tool might just be like holding onto a cable without a handle,
That's what I do.
Yeah, I mean, and it works great, right? You tilt to the side a little bit, you get a good strength curve with the cable. It works pretty well. And dumbbells can be tricky because, it's just a little lateral deltoid, right? So if you don't have a fractional dumbbell, 10 pounds might be too heavy, but the next dumbbell you have is 5 and that's too light and you need a 7.5, but the gym doesn't have them or something like that. You just run into trouble. And like you're saying, not every machine has a great strength curve. So it might not be comfortable to sit in or fit your body type or move smoothly. So you just have to find the right thing for you or the person you're working with.
Now, do you train with a partner at this point? Have you found anybody to sort of join you in this process, or do you do solo, or do you prefer to be solo?
Well, I've had a couple. And they quit. No, I started off with one girl. She seemed okay. And then I don't know, she was all over the place. So she was good. I taught her how to do it and she wanted to go to this other gym. So she went by herself, I think. I'm not sure if she's still doing it. But then I have a friend of mine who's older. She's 67. And she asked me to help her. And I told her, I said, look, this is what I'm doing. And I want to save you some time and aggravation because if you go to the gym like you've been doing 4 or 5 days a week, and they put her on a program because she didn't know how to do anything. And this was like really cool for me because of her age and the fact that I've known her for years and she's never worked out. So I thought, well, I'm just going to teach this to her. And if she wants to do it, she could do it on her own, but I'll show her how to do it. Well, I had no idea that she would want to keep doing it. And then so I just kept going to the gym with her. And I thought, well, she could spot me if I need somebody. I'll teach her how to do that. and it turned out really, really well. And so she just actually had to have a surgery, an elected surgery. So nothing like from exercise or nothing like that. So she just had to miss like 3 weeks. And I told her, I said, why don't you take 5 weeks off? Because you can't lift anything heavier than 10 pounds after the 3 weeks. I go, that's just pointless. I said, just take 5 weeks off and then we'll come back and see what you can do. But yeah, so I have her, and I really was surprised because I did not think that this would be something that she'd want to stick with. But she started making a lot of progress quickly. And even at her age, and even though she, hasn't worked out very well before because no one taught her, and she was really skinny, like so little where she looked like a little kid, it was like real tiny. And like the last time we trained, we did legs, and I could see her quads like a little bump going there, and everything. I was like, oh my gosh, look, it's happening, and it's only been, we started in like October. I pushed her though. I mean, I made her lift heavy stuff because she was doing on the chest. We used the hammer strength incline one. That's what they have. So we were using that. I did the Smith machine incline bench, but I don't really like it. It doesn't, like I said, like just like some machines, I don't feel that there. And I thought, well, why am I keep doing this? I don't even feel my chest. I'd rather do where I feel it. So we started doing that incline hammer strength. And I got her up to 30 pounds on each side on there. And she was doing 10 pounds when I met her. So she's up to 30. So to me, I feel like this is a good move for both of us because she can help me, because sometimes when you work out with somebody, you end up carrying them a little too much,
Having a good workout partner is always useful for sure. Now, do you write everything down? Are you tracking your workouts?
I was, but I have like one of these crazy memories where I remember everything. So I do it on my Instagram videos when I post a video. I write down what I was using, but I don't because sometimes I feel like this. Sometimes I don't feel as strong in the gym, and I don't think it's because I'm losing muscle or I took too many days off. I feel like maybe I'm just tired today, or maybe I didn't eat enough food, or because how everything affects you. So I feel like sometimes I want to go lighter too, based on how my body feels. So sometimes I don't do as heavy as I did the week before. I might do less, but I might move slower. Because sometimes I've looked at my videos and I think I'm moving too fast. I got too much weight on there. I'm probably going too quickly. I should take the weight down and slow the pace down, like on the squat, especially.
Do you try to keep a specific cadence in mind? Like
4 negative and 2 positive is what I aim for.
that's kind of like the classic Nautilus pace. And so you're not really tracking necessarily, but you kind of have a good sense of where you are. And I mean, do you still go to failure regardless, days when you feel like going lighter?
Yeah, I make sure if I'm going lighter, I'm moving super slow.
I know even with Mentzer in the past, I'd mentioned to you, I think that, I used to talk to him on the phone a lot back in the day. I know that when he was training, sometimes he had the limitations of a certain machine, like maybe he's using a leg press that has a set stack, and his guys got to the point where they're lifting the stack, and again, he didn't worry about it, so he just had them, keep lifting the stack. So maybe they failed at 17 reps, and then a couple weeks later they failed at 20 reps, and then a couple weeks later they failed at 23 reps, right? And as long as they're improving, like the weight was finite because he didn't have a way to add more, but he just let them keep grinding, right? And as long as you're moving the weight for longer or getting more reps out with the same poundage, right? It's another way of progression.
Kind of reminds me of we interviewed, this is a ways back, but we interviewed Mike Bradley, who's a men's basketball strength coach down in Florida. He was saying that in the summers they don't track weights at all. They kind of, because it kind of similar to us, Mike Bradley and the FSU Seminole basketball team, they're kind of clinical in their approach to tracking things, and so it's nice to take a break from that and kind of just like flow with it, right? And just be in the flow of the workout. And we know whether you're doing high reps or low reps or medium reps or whatever, as long as you're training to muscular failure, you're going to get the same result. I always say all roads lead to Rome. So I think especially, we all sort of generally want to be focused on progressive overload, right? And making sure the weights are getting incrementally heavier as we go. But as we approach our genetic potential, we're not going to see those big leaps like we do in the very beginning of lifting. So I think in a sense, the beginning is probably the most important time to be really tracking things, because that's how you know that you are pushing the envelope. But as we become intermediate and advanced trainees, the tracking to me becomes not quite as essential, but it's always essential to make sure you are working as hard as you can.
Plus, I would say though, like if you decide to go back into competition or that kind of, those are the times when you do want to start paying attention to make sure that you're actually, improving and one-upping yourself as you hit, Dorian Yates talks about how, I mean, he kept meticulous records on everything. There's a lot of videos going around right now. I just shared one the other day about him saying how you don't really need to change exercises, that he did the same exercise for 12 years, but he was always progressing and making sure that, even if he's adding a tiny bit, whether it's more reps or more weight or a combination, right? Progressive overload is, one of the cornerstones, right, of the long-term success of your strength training. So yeah, but yeah, I agree that you can freestyle at times, and as long as you're training hard. So now you were saying that you've discovered this. Sounds like you've only been doing it for about 5 months. Is that right? It's 5 or 6 months.
Yeah, going on 7. Going on 7.
And you also sounds like you're feeling like you're probably not going to go back, right? And I tell people all the time, you can't unlearn the truth, and once people get to this recognition that this lower volume effort-based approach is so effective, it's like, why would you ever go back to doing like a German volume training, 10 sets of 10, or any of that kind of stuff? Like, why would you waste your time?
There's 2 reasons. They want to go to the gym just to go somewhere and be out and about and be seen, talk to their friends. They're all doing the same way, and that's it. They follow the herd. It's like, well, everybody does it this way because Arnold said to, because so-and-so said to. Frank Zane did 1,000 sit-ups. I'm going to do 1,000 sit-ups. Oh my Lord, I couldn't even imagine doing that. And he was awesome, but I don't want to do 1,000 sit-ups.
And that's why Mentzer had that. He liked to quote. He would say, "If you want to conduct the orchestra, you have to turn your back to the crowd."
Yes, I love that. Somebody put that on a T-shirt. I saw it online.
That's awesome.
But since I have my own clothing line, I can make myself whatever I want. So I was like, oh, I should make myself some Mike Mentzer shorts. I put the heavy duty logo on my shorts.
Yes, do it. We will buy those.
I was gonna make some new videos with those. What's that?
I said, make them cute. We'll buy a pair.
Yeah. Well, actually, you'd be surprised. My clothing line, my number one selling product is actually to men right now. So most of my sales, the majority of my sales are from men.
I've not checked out your store, but I will be checking it out when we finish.
I have an Olympic lifter named Vadim Kozevnikov, and he is absolutely 100% amazing. He looks insane. He only does Olympic lifting. And I found him online, and I asked him if he wanted to try my clothing line, and he fell in love with it and the design, and he wears it all the time. He gets 2 million views on his reels and stuff. So he's really helped me, get my brand out there and noticed, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's all you need, man, is somebody like that.
And now I love him. I'm so grateful. But yeah, when I would watch him lift, I'm like, oh my God, this guy's nuts. He's so talented and he's so really, really gifted. But that's another style of lifting that never was attractive to me. I never wanted to try CrossFit, Olympic lifting. As much as I admire people who do it, I just never felt like that was a connection for me. I've never tried CrossFit, and a lot of my friends did, and they were like, oh, you should go to CrossFit. And I was like, well, number one reason I didn't want to is because the gym I worked at for a short period of time, they had a CrossFit in there. And all the people that would come out of there and come into the weight room and do lifting after they were in CrossFit, they all had a bunch of injuries. And I was just like, no thanks. Not to say that that's why, but I would think improper form or something.
Olympic weightlifting is a sport, right? It's a very specific thing. It is not, I always say this, people think I'm crazy, but I don't consider it a form of strength training. It's a sport that requires strength to achieve the results. But it is a sport with highly technical things that you have to be an expert at. And nobody needs to ever do Olympic lifting if they're not competing in Olympic lifting. There's literally no reason that anyone would have to do that. Same thing with kettlebells, honestly. It's if you love them, that's fantastic. But you don't need a kettlebell to get in shape. And you don't need to know how to do a snatch or jerk or swing to get in great shape. If you love kettlebells, great. Spend as much time as you like to with them. But we tell people that there's literally no reason to that. We don't do any Olympic lifting. Jesse and I are both certified in Olympic lifting. I have multiple certifications. I used to do it a lot because I enjoyed it, but I didn't do it for the physique. I did it because I enjoyed the sport. So that's sort of a side effect. that you may get some muscles and all that other stuff, but it's not the best way to do it, I don't think.
And here's the thing that people don't get. They think a trainer is a trainer, a gym is a gym, a piece of equipment is a piece of equipment. Like, and I remember when I was training at this one gym in particular, a lot of the trainers in there, this was when kettlebells were fairly new and nobody knew what they were doing. And they would still have their clients using them improperly. And then they would see me and their clients would see my clients like working out with them. And they'd be like, looking at us like, what is that? Like, that's what you're supposed to do with kettlebell. What you're doing is just like, I don't know what that is. And it looks like your trainer's going to hurt you. So I feel like it's a responsibility of a trainer to make sure that they know exactly how to teach the things that they're teaching, but they want to use it just because it's different or it's hot, it's a new thing. So now everybody wants to know how to do it. So oh yeah, I could do that. And they've even told me, oh, I just go on YouTube and I watch some guy. And I'm like, okay, and the gym out here asked me if I would certify some of their people. And when I told them what it would entail, they said, oh, no, they're really good trainers. We want to teach them something in like a few hours. Okay, I want no part of that. I'm like, that's impossible. You can't learn that in a few hours, like maybe 3 days, a few hours in 3 days. And they don't want to go that extra mile to become an expert at something. They just want to be like the jack of all trades and master of none, and I just feel like for me, and a lot of people just go to me like they assume I'm a trainer. I've never been a personal trainer. I taught Pilates and kettlebells only. I never was a certified personal trainer. So when anybody sees me anywhere, go, oh, well, you're a trainer. So, I'm like, no, I'm not. I've never trained people. I've taught people who I know, who are my friends, but I don't train people that because that's not what I'm an expert in. And truthfully, that was like my hobby. So I didn't want to mix the two of those things and be like, now I hate the gym because I'm living here, and that's what I think happens.
Hey, what are those guys doing here? Whenever I feel like I'm stalling out on my bench press, I know I need a new strength curve. Whether you're stalling out on the road or stalling out in the gym, you need something with great engineering. That's right. So look for the pendulum. Pendulum. Not just your average strength machines. No, they have smooth strength curves, amazing rigidity. And did we mention the engineering's fantastic? That's right. Not to mention, they come in cool colors. Like red. And silver. Well, that was kind of weird. What was that all about? Back to the interview.
So now, even though we love talking about high intensity, I'm curious, how long was your excursion into the kettlebell stuff? Like,
many years. 2007. I was using them in 2006, and I did my last competition. I was too big. I had a lot of muscle from all the years of bodybuilding, and I used to eat a lot of steak, and I was younger, so I put on muscle quick. I weighed like 165. I'm 5'8" in the off season, but on stage I would be like 145, but they were picking the girls to be smaller back then. So I thought, well, I got to get rid of some of this muscle because I got the last call out at the USA's in 2006 and I was really pissed. And I was like, okay, well, I'm too big, whatever. So I started doing kettlebells and I got really tiny. Like I went down to 136 on stage and I got the highest call out I ever got at the nationals back then. This was 2007. And I didn't do any weights. I only did kettlebells and I did a little bit of cardio, but I was shredded and tiny. And I was like, my pants were falling off me. I mean, it was like perfect. So I was really happy with that. I made it in like the top, I think I was like 12th or something like that. So that was the highest I ever had been at that level. And I was pretty stoked about it. But then I decided I kind of got tired of competing because I didn't know. People tell you, this is how you do it. Just like with Mike. Mike says, no, that's not how you do it. But everybody else goes, oh no, you get up and you do cardio on an empty stomach for an hour. And then you eat these little meals every 3 hours. And then you're going to weight train. Shoulders this day, chest this day, arms this day, legs this day. That's how you do it to do a show. And I'm like, well, why? I did a show doing all kettlebells. Like I didn't do cardio traditionally like I was supposed to. I changed everything and I looked better. So for my body that worked. And then I decided, I think I'm done with this. I don't know. It just left a bad taste in my mouth how they always change the criteria. First they want more muscle, then it's less muscle. So I just said, I quit. And then when I found out you could compete in kettlebells, I was like, oh, this sounds fun. This is something else I can do. So I got really into it. And I did that from 2008. I started my first meet was 2009. I missed candidate for Master of Sport, which is like semi-pro. That's what I am now. I missed that rank by like 11 reps. So I was a little bit bummed, but I thought, well, I'll just try again.
Were you doing it through the RKC like with Pavel Tsatsouline?
No, no, they were like, they hated me because when I came out, I'll show you why they hated me. They had their own people and they wanted to keep kettlebells only for them. So these just happened to be in my room. So I came out with this DVD, and then this one, and they came after me like I was Kettlestein. They were with their pitchforks like, you can't teach that. They were spreading lies about me all over the internet saying I was going to hurt people because you know what I was doing that they don't do? I was doing kettlebell sport moves, hinging, hip hinging. They taught the swing. You squat and thrust your hips forward and bring the bell out like this. No, you don't. And I taught the swing where you like rock back and forth and your back is slightly rounded because that's what it's supposed to be. And they taught like, no, you stay upright and you go like this and you're, you know, they have their own way and that's fine. But they were trying to stop me and discredit me. And they were actually calling, do you know who Mike Mahler is?
Yeah, I know the name, of course. I don't know him personally, but I've known his name for a long time.
Well, me and Mike are friends. And he was like, oh my God, these people are calling me about you. And they're saying that you're going to hurt people and this and that. And he was like, you know, no, she's not. I know Lisa, she's a really good trainer. Like he had to stick up for me. But they didn't like me. And because I was threatening what they were teaching, because you cannot hide the truth, just like Mike Mentzer's method is coming up. You cannot hide kettlebell sport and say that the RKC is what kettlebell lifting is. It's not. That's actually good for them. It's a great method of fitness, but it's not the traditional kettlebell because kettlebell sport has been around in Europe since the 40s, 1940s. So you can't sit there and say, oh, the RKC moves are the real way to do kettlebells. Even they have changed. I've noticed some of the people, they've changed and they don't do that anymore. They do the rocking motion like you're supposed to with the swing. So they've kind of changed their way a little bit too. And it's like you cannot stop a sport from growing. So it's grown like over 30% in the past few years in America. And the community is quite big.
Kettlebells have been blowing up for a long time. So I'm going to move back into the Mentzer stuff. You found all these videos, but did you ever find an actual sort of mentor of any kind? Someone else who helped coach you all? Or
I met this guy. You guys might want to talk to him, actually. His name is Philip. He lives in Croatia, and he has his own gym, and he teaches Mike Mentzer. He was a professional basketball player over in Croatia, and he is extremely intelligent.
What's his last name?
Nayev. It's spelled with an F, not a P. Filip, and it's Najeb. And he is the one that actually started talking to me in the comments on the one. And then he messaged me on Instagram and he gave me some pointers. And then we just started talking. So we've been talking now for like 7 months. So we've become friends. But he is really brilliant. And he was telling me he was going to quit working out until he found this, because in basketball over there, they beat the crap out of them. Like they make them do so much stuff and at a very young age. And he told me his back got really messed up from being in the sport because they had him doing things that were clearly not right for him. A lot of clean and jerk, like Olympic lifting.
Yeah, terrible, especially for very tall athletes. The guy that Jesse was mentioning earlier, Mike Bradley, who's the head strength and conditioning coach for the Florida State basketball, he only does strength training for basketball. He literally does 0 free weights in his program. It's all machines. He's like, I'm not going to have a 7-foot tall guy do like a barbell press over his head. The barbell's like 10 feet in the air. You know what I mean? There's nothing, right? And plus he doesn't want to hurt these guys. He needs to get them as strong as possible, as safely as possible. And so they don't do any free weights. It's all machines. Talking, I did my little bit of homework and I'd found your, Kettlebell Bombshell videos and different things. But I didn't know that you actually were a clothing person as well. I hadn't figured that part out.
Well, so I have this one design. It's called, they're called acronyms. So I have some acronyms and then it says squat, clean, lift. And then it says KBBS and has a little kettlebell with the bomb shelter. Because I have a lot of guys were asking me when I first started it, they were like, well, do you make anything for men? And I said, well, kettlebell bombshell is not really for men. And I thought it could be, but it's really not. And I thought, well, I can come up with something else. And I thought, I'm going to make like bomb shelter fitness. So, because you make your body a bomb shelter, right? Your body is so strong that it's a bomb shelter. So, I came up with a cute little logo and stuff for it, and a lot of guys liked it.
And what do you call the clothing line? Is there like one blanket name for
It's the bomb shelter, man.
that's the men's stuff.
It's on my website. It's just Kettlebell Bombshell. Kettlebell Bombshell. And everything is on there. So it's got the men's and the women's, and because it's like Kettlebell Bombshell, and then it has the Bomb Shelter clothing line, which is a unisex brand.
Good branding, Lisa. You made it. Yeah, you made it sound cool for the guys. I like it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, the guys love these shorts. They are going like hot. They're selling like hotcakes, and they're loving them. And I get a lot of nice messages from the guys that are like, they're the type, like the biker shorts. So in a lot of the lifting, the guys will wear those. Where some guys are like, I don't like those tight shorts. I don't wear those. I'm like, well, I have loose athletic shorts as well that you can buy the same design on. So
Do you have aspirations to get back on the competitive stage at this point now that you've been renewed with your?
at first I did, but I don't know. I feel like, do I really feel like doing it? I'm at a crossroads. At this point right now, I'll say not now, but maybe next year or the year after. I just have to see what I feel like, because honestly, that just takes up so much of your time. And I don't know that I want to be like married to that, like,
All the dieting, especially.
well, it's only 3 months, but then I might have to change how I'm training, because I don't know how I would get ready for a show like this.
Mentzer also said, that people, what they are elevating the fitness routine into a social ritual, kind of along those lines of like spending all your time in the gym, right? And as you were saying, because I often do the same thing when I do a lot of consulting, and I tell people they should take at least 10 days off, when they first meet me, and they all freak out. Oh my God, how am I going to take 10 days off? And I was like, go read a book, walk the dog, play Frisbee, do something, but they all freak out. And then usually about 5 days in, they're like excited, like, oh my God, I feel so much better already.
But you get used to it, and then you know what? Like now, it doesn't even phase me that I don't go to the gym. Like I think I'm supposed to work out today, actually, and I'm supposed to do legs. But this morning, I had this weird pain in my IT band, and I thought, I don't really want to train legs. Like if I have a pain in my IT band, I'm not going to do squats. So maybe I'll just do back instead, like chest and back. And I did shoulders like 3 days ago. So I thought, well, in the ideal program, you're supposed to split that up with legs. But I feel like since today I kind of have that weird pain, I thought I'll just do my chest and back workout.
Or you could take an extra day off.
Or maybe that's what I was thinking. Like, well, what are you doing? Just stay on the program and take an extra day off. And this time of year, like if you think about how people spend their time, they're so busy. They're getting ready for Christmas or holidays, whatever, and they've got families, and their family would probably love to see them more instead of them going to the gym every day. Like that extra hour or two spending at home could actually benefit your life.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Lisa. And this is something that I think more and more about. I think in the fitness community, both locally and online, there are sort of these two at odds conversations, and one of them is about optimization, and that's where we like to split hairs, and all the lifting experts bash each other in the comments section. But the other conversation is about how do we be healthy for a lifetime, right? And this is what I'll talk with new clients about, especially, or maybe somebody who's bummed because they got sick and missed a couple workouts, or they went on vacation and they missed a couple workouts or something like that. I'll remind them that, look, the average American works out 0 times a year. They sit on their butt and they don't get started lifting weights because they think it takes too long, or they don't know how, or it's going to be too expensive, or they're perfectionists about it, or they procrastinate, right? There's a million excuses for why people don't get started, but they don't get started for one reason or another. If you're doing something like what you're doing, right? Consolidation training, you're training, let's say you train, once every 10 days, you're going to do basically like 35 workouts a year, 36 workouts a year if you don't miss one. 36 workouts a year. That doesn't sound like a lot in a year, but if you do 36 workouts a year for the rest of your life, it will radically improve the quality of your life. And I feel like the people who kind of get stuck on that like optimization conversation, they're optimizing a lot of the time for the short term, right? because there's only so much time I can work out for an hour a day, 6 days a week, and make sure I'm timing my protein shakes to ingest them 30 minutes before or after my workout, and make sure I'm taking my laundry list of supplements every single day, and bringing my Tupperware containers to social events. Like that's just not sustainable behavior. And what you're talking about, working out 2-3 times a week, generally watching what you're eating. You talked on your YouTube channel about toying around with your diet and figuring out what works better. And I appreciate what you said in a recent video about Mike Mentzer used to kind of talk about how eating lots of protein was not very important, because he would talk about how muscle is mainly made up of carbohydrate. But we know better now than Mentzer did then. We know how important protein is. And it's not that, especially for a competitive bodybuilder, it's not that carbohydrates are not important, but what is important is to find the right balance for you that you can sustain and you enjoy and helps you maintain muscle. So anyway, I guess what I'm saying is I admire the process and the journey that you are going through and that you have gone through, because I think you have an enlightened glow about you, and yeah, feels like we're talking with a like mind.
Absolutely. Well, you know what, too? My friend Philip, and he sent me one of Mike's, he sent me a picture of Mike with another person that he had trained that was a competitor. I forget who it was. It was a blonde guy. It didn't look like it wasn't Tom Platz or nothing like that. But anyways, he was like, Mike was such a good person. And I said, you know what? He really was. I said, he was a really great person. I said, and that's why he resonates with us, because we're good people. I feel like I've connected more to this than any other way. And when I watch videos, and not to say like Arnold was obviously very great, he looked unbelievable. He won the Olympia many times, 7 times or whatever. But I feel like still, just because you win the title doesn't mean that that's the only way that you can do it that works, And even though Mike never was Mr. Olympia, I don't think that mattered. I think, in fact, that probably motivated him even more to get the message out there, because, he wasn't the winner. And should he have been? And when everybody, talks about that, I'm like, it doesn't matter. What happened. And that happens all throughout sports all the time. It's still subjective. It's an opinion. And if they felt, that Arnold was the winner, then he was the winner. And Mike got 5th place, I think, that year. But it still doesn't take away from the fact that his body is amazing. His method really works. He was very intelligent. He had science-based, information that he shared with people, and he always had an answer for the questions that he was asked, it seems like, anyways. So I feel like my connection to this has brought me a better understanding of how the body even works. Like all this time I was thinking, well, if I train my shoulders more, they'll get bigger. Well, the opposite was happening. I was having more trouble growing them, and now it's like I still look at them and go, that's my lagging body part to me. So I'm like, I still want bigger shoulders, but then I'll just have to go heavier with the weights and maybe take an extra rest day in between, when I do them or whatever.
I used to have Mike Mentzer back in the answering machine days. I actually had Mike Mentzer quotes on my answering machine. So when someone called to leave a message, they would get Mike Mentzer's voice, like from these crazy interviews that was hilarious. And most people had no idea, of course, what it was about. But it was Mike like ranting about funny things. And when I used to talk to him on the phone, he would like always invite me down to LA where he was training. And at the time, unfortunately, my thought process was, well, he's going to be there, so I can go anytime, because I don't live that far away. And of course, he passed away. He passed away unexpectedly, and I missed that opportunity. So that's definitely something I regret.
That's always something that we take for granted with anything, even like our favorite restaurant, our favorite person, like, oh yeah, that's not going anywhere. Then when the restaurant closes, they're like, oh, I love that place. You never go. I know, but I could have, and I think that we all do that. We take those things for granted. But at least you did have a friendship with him, a relationship of some sort that you can look back on and remember, but we're keeping him alive through this. It's like I tell people, this is like so cool that he's, more successful from the grave. So something that's going on.
Yeah, he's exploding for sure right now.
And how many people, just like Joseph Pilates was the same exact way. most people had no idea. They thought that's just the name of the exercise. That was the person. And Joseph
yeah.
Pilates was a badass. He was a bodybuilder. He was a yoga person, and he was, a hardcore like fitness guy. And I've seen videos of him when he taught Pilates. It was not this gentle crap that they sell you in Hollywood, like, oh, all celebrities do Pilates and women do Pilates. It's easy. If you watched him train people, he'd be like taking their head and smashing it down and pushing them and doing all this crazy shit. Like, he was German, man. He was like, he was hardcore. And he made up his method. I don't know if you know this or not. He was a nurse in an internment camp in Germany, and he took the old bed springs that were, from the stuff they weren't using, and he hooked them up into the wall. So the guys that were in there healing and recovering from like surgeries or injuries, whatever happened to them, he was exercising them while they were laying down in bed with these springs. And that's how he made up this method. And then when he moved to New York, it was during the Great Depression, and a lot of people were not interested in fitness. They were trying to eat or pay their bills or, whatever. And so the only people he could get to listen to him were dancers and choreographers. And that's how he ended up in that community with those people, because they're always injured and then they're always wanting to move. So he found his way with those people and became very, very popular because he was extremely intelligent. He knew how to rehab your body, how to strengthen you at the same time, and building the muscles that you don't get when you're lifting weights. They're like the total secondary muscle group. So it's actually very cool. And I trained Jay Cutler for a while, who was Mr. Olympia. Him and I are good friends. He did some Pilates with me and he really liked it. And then he did some kettlebells too. And yeah, it was fun training him. And
It's hard to imagine Jay Cutler doing either of those things.
And he was big. Oh my gosh. He brought the camera crew from Flex Magazine. And I was like, what? He goes, we're going to do a photo shoot in here. And I was like, oh my God. And then I remember I would be like working with him and trying to stretch him, because he always wanted me to stretch him, like push down on him, whatever. I would be sweating so bad, because it's like, when you're around somebody with that much muscle mass, it's like you just feel heat coming off of them, I'm like, I don't think I'm nervous. I think I'm just like, it's super hot in here, And back then I was kind of muscular too, but he was very, Jay is a really cool person, very cool person.
You should tell Jay to come and talk with us sometime. We would like to talk to him. That'd be awesome.
Oh yeah, I will tell him. I'll text him.
Tell him to get out here on the podcast.
But yeah, you bring up a good point there, Lisa. Coming back to that, conducting the orchestra, turning your back to the crowd. High intensity training can seem on its face like kind of an antisocial thing, right? Because if you're coming from a high volume place where you're working out an hour a day, 90 minutes a day, 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, you do spend a lot of time in the gym and you do see the same people and you do say hi and ask how you doing and all that stuff. And when you're only working out for 30 minutes, 2 or 3 times a week, and nobody sees you and you're just in and out, it can be easy to, feel like a ghost.
Well, I think that's why I like this, because I'm an introvert.
How long do your workouts take you usually? How long does a typical Mentzer workout take you? Because I know when I was following his stuff very, very strictly, honestly, my workouts would take maybe 10 minutes, like to do, because you're only doing like maybe 6 exercises, right? So
my first time it was 10 minutes. My first couple times it was fast. But you know what I realized I wanted to do for myself, and I feel like I get a better workout now. I probably spend 40 to 45, and that's only because when I get there, I warm up. I do like 5 minutes sometimes on the bike or whatever, just to get the blood flowing. And then I want to set the machines up for myself to, like, especially chest, the flies, I have to use cables. So I got to make sure that, I got the chair in the right spot and everything's working. I want to do I just do like a warm up of 4 just to move, get that stuff moving. Then I set up the Smith machine and the same thing. So I do like a couple warm up sets, because I did see where he said that you could do like a couple of the compound movement. So he said to move like the chest incline bench would be your warm up, do like no more than 4, but then you'll have your weights ready to go. So I want to make sure that my machines are set right and it feels okay. The angle and everything on my body feels okay. So I do a couple warm-ups just like that, like 4 reps, nothing crazy. And then I know from there, okay, I could do more weight than this. So I'm going to go up and I'll change the weight, or I'll add more weight to it. And then I take a little rest, and then I go to it to do the failure. So the chest workout probably takes me 3 minutes to do, but with the warm up, maybe 8 to 10. And then I'll go and do back. And since those are two different exercises, I think I give myself 10 minutes per exercise or superset. So I think I'm doing it like that. So it's like 30. And going heavy, I feel like sometimes I need more rest in between. I'm still breathing hard. And he even said, you'll know you don't want to be lollygagging around, but you don't want to rest too long. And you don't want to go like, okay, I'm already ready. And I think sometimes mentally, I'm so excited. It's like, okay, now it's back. And, then you're pumped up because you're going to failure. And then it's like, okay, well, calm down, give it a second, because then you might not be able to do as many.
It's working for you, Lisa. You clearly, you post on your Instagram and YouTube. You clearly have a great physique, and you dial.
Aw, thank you. And I just turned 54 last week.
Yeah, nobody would. When I heard you say that on social media, I was like, "There's no way." I would have thought you were in your 30s. So
because sometimes I go, well, the videos look good. It's hiding some of it, and having my long share hair helps. But I think just generally when you're fit, people just assume you're younger because
that's true. Yeah,
it's not normal. And like I love how much better my glutes look because I was doing all those, and that's one more thing I wanted to stress about why I love this so much. I love that you don't have to make up all these exercises. It's like, well, for hamstrings, I'm going to do seated hamstring and standing leg curl and bridging. And I hate that overrated glute bridge is like my most like, I can't stand that exercise. I don't even feel like it does that much for me other
you
than
gotta load it up. You can't do it with your body weight. You got to put a heavy bar on it or something.
I know, but I feel like that's going to squish my pelvis or I don't know. I just don't like.
I agree with you that it's overrated.
I think it is. I think it's kind of like big deal. I that is not better than a squat. There's no
Guys, it has tons of value, okay? Because you get to be in the gym loading up hundreds of pounds, making a show of it. So yeah, you get to look impressive in front of a lot of people.
Yeah. You get to look like you really have the best butt on the planet. But I did a ton of squats. And that was like, because Tony Pearson used to train me. Do you know who Tony is? He was from the Arnold days. Tony still looks like that. He is amazing. But he's the one that told me this. And he taught me so much information, valuable stuff. Like, I'm so grateful for him. He is the one that told me. He's the first person that ever made me do a real squat, not on the Smith machine, I never did them. And he had me squatting 225. Like he had me lifting to failure pretty much. Like he would have to spot me. But he told me, when you squat, your whole body grows. And he's like, so you want to squat. And I think that's what sticks in my head when I do the heavy duty workout, when people think, well, on leg day, you're just doing legs. And I go, no, not really, because when you're squatting and you're holding weight, your upper body is still holding that, that weight. So,
and you might not have that experience unless you're truly doing a barbell squat to failure, because
That's it.
yeah, that dude's pretty big. Of course your glutes and your quads and everything in your lower body's working hard, your lower back. But if you're really pressing, hundreds of pounds in a squat, I mean, you're shoulder pressing it. You're right. You're lighting up everything in your body. And that coming full circle, maybe you've gone here already, but Mike Mentzer was a disciple of Arthur Jones, and if you dig deep enough and you read about Arthur Jones, you dig through the Nautilus bulletins and you'll come into contact with a concept called the indirect effect, right? Which is that sometimes you might feel that you might not do any direct neck training, but just through squatting, your neck might get bigger and stronger, right?
So I feel like anybody who's afraid to try this because they don't want to miss back day once a week, or because I had one guy say that to me. He said, oh, I didn't like that. I only trained back once every 2 weeks or something like that. And I was like, yeah, but technically you're not. You're doing more. Like you don't think you are. Even when you're doing this.
Think of it as like spillover.
Yeah.
It's like it's even you let's say you're using the chest press machine and written on it says this exercise works the triceps, front deltoids, and pectoral muscles. Well, that's true, and you're probably getting some engagement from some other stuff, right?
Yeah, your lats have to stabilize. I mean, almost anyone who's lifted heavy. I mean, yesterday I was doing some chest presses, and I always get cramps in my back when I'm doing heavy chest exercise, right? Because my back is trying to stabilize. So when I'm really working chest hard, it's not unusual. I'm trying to dial those positions and really get set, and I'll get cramps in my upper back while I'm doing my heavy pressing.
I mean, that's like my own personal feeling about it. And I think that's why My old trainer Jeannie Paparone, when I went to a show with her, we just went. She had a client in a show recently, and we went together. And she goes, "You definitely look fuller." She goes, you look more filled out." And I was like, because I was always lean, and then I was always doing cardio. I would do cardio like 5 days a week for 30 minutes on the stair climber because I want to be ripped. And then I was like, it's hard for me not to be as lean as I normally am, but at the same time, I'm building muscle. And, if I really want to, I can do cardio, like he said, twice a week for what, 20 to 30 minutes, just for my mind. But even that, I stopped doing that because I thought, well, why am I doing that? I don't really have to do it. And weightlifting is a good form of cardio, anyways. Like you're still getting your heart in good shape, I feel. And I just saw somewhere they did a study where they said that weightlifting is just as effective for cardiovascular health.
Yeah, we know that
Yeah,
lifting weights.
that's one of those big misunderstandings that's been going on forever.
Mm-hmm.
You know that lifting weights does a lot of great things physiologically. It improves stroke volume for your heart. It's going to acutely increase blood pressure, but chronically decrease blood pressure, right? Which is also a good thing. So yeah, your muscles don't work without your heart and your lungs. you can't compartmentalize them like a lot of people think you can. But that's a tricky thing. That's a tricky dichotomy because yes, lifting weights will improve your cardiovascular health. However, running, right, and doing quote unquote cardio, it doesn't work in the other direction as much. You might get a tiny bit stronger in your lower half running, right, just because you're being more active. But in terms of maximizing your strength, it's got to be through strength training. It's not going to happen through running or cardio.
Exactly. And that's why even, and Philip and I, when we were talking, he's really smart. And he made this comment to me. He said when he was in basketball, they used to make him run all the time. And he said he was the slowest person. He goes, I was always the slowest. I hated running. He goes, but when we would play basketball 5-on-5, he goes, I outlasted everybody. He says running only makes you better at running. He's like, it didn't improve his skills in basketball because he was able to outlast the other people who could beat him in a run. So it's almost like, what's the point of doing that? And even when I did kettlebell sport, a lot of the people do running in the sport. I never did. And I felt like, and I told my coach, I said, I hate running. Please don't make me do running. He's like, no, I won't. He would make me do lighter sets for longer time and faster. Like he would make me do like 4-kilogram bells, which is under 10 pounds. And he'd go do that for 15 minutes. I'm like, what? Like, that's insane. But that's how you build the cardio for that sport. You do lighter, longer, faster. And then before you know it, that weight is easier. Then you can go up to 6 kilogram. Then you can go up to 8 kilogram. And then before you know it, you can do the same reps that you could do with the 4. But that's the thing that was building the cardio for that sport, not me going out on the treadmill.
It's funny, as we've been talking here, I've actually been thinking about something. I've never really thought about it this way before, but we know an exercise that causes your muscles to fail in about 2 minutes or less is by definition a strength building exercise. If you can do it for longer than 2 minutes, then it's a conditioning exercise, right? Because your muscles aren't being brought to failure, and that's a requirement for building strength. And this is the piece I'd never really thought about before, but if it takes you longer than 2 minutes to just explain the technique of it, then it's probably a sport, right? because you can, right? And you can put a lot of things, even some strength building exercises like a barbell squat into this category, because when you're first learning how to do it, I mean, you can spend months working on your technique and you're always refining it, right? Because when you are working at a high level of intensity, the technique becomes crucial, right? When you got hundreds of pounds on your back, it's literally, you're putting your life and limb at risk, right? So those are good things for people to keep in mind. But Lisa, I hate to break away here, but we're coming up against our stopping time. It's been,
I know, it's so much fun talking about Mike. You could just talk about him all day.
We could talk about you all day because you are gregarious and fantastic and interesting to talk with, and it's been a pleasure to be chatting with you today.
Oh, thank you so much. This was so much fun. I really do appreciate you guys having me on and talking about my business and other things too. So this was really cool. Hopefully we'll get.
Yeah, what's your website and give us your social media handles and all that stuff.
Everything is kettlebellbombshell.com on Facebook. I don't really use Facebook as much though, but I will check it. I always forget because I'm an Instagram person. So My YouTube, though, where I do Mike Mentzer, I haven't really been uploading everything on there because I've had trouble with this app I was using. So I post most of it on my Lisa Balash Instagram. But but my business page is Kettlebell Bombshell. So everything is under that, or Lisa Balash IFBB Pro is my Instagram title.
Nice. All right.
33 years old, still crushing it.
54, man. I can't even believe it. Sometimes I'm like, how did that happen? But then when you get all these weird aches and pains, you're like, oh, okay, that's new.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, you guys. It was so great chatting and good to meet you both. And I will see y'all soon.
Great chatting with you as well.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Boom, baby. What's up, people? Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Truth Not Trends. That's right here at TNT Strength Headquarters, Truth Not Trends.
Please, if you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, rate, and review us on whatever platform you're listening to us on. And don't forget to share with a friend.
You can find us on the web at tntstrength.com.
That's right, TNT Strength now coming to you in person at 5255 College Avenue in Oakland, California. You can call the studio 510-768-5421. You can also text us at 855-796-9905.
Or shoot us an email at contact@tntstrength.com. And whatever you do, stay off of that stupid blue bubbly bosun. I can tell some stories about that kind of thing if you like.
Mixed and edited by Desmond McNeese for We Mixed It, LLC. Go to whatsoundsawesome.com.
Sorry, that was a bad joke.